Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Dude Baby Podcast. I'm here with my hetero life mate, Falon, a.k.a. Falonify, a.k.a. Smooth AF. I am your host, Randy, Randissimo, the Magnifico. And we're here with our very, I would say, official guest of like our whole podcast, because we only have our dumbass friends who we love, so thank you.
Yeah.
But our first guest, she didn't know us. We don't know her. Complete stranger, Taylor, a.k.a. Corpus Christi's own La Brujita. Did I say that right?
Yes.
I don't speak Spanish.
That's okay, me neither.
Could you tell?
Nice.
Yeah, could you tell by the way I said it?
You rolled that R, though.
Hell yeah.
Pretty solid.
Yeah. My wife speaks very good Spanish, and I'll just make fun of her. And I got pretty good at it, ironically.
You're like Mark Wahlberg from the other guys. No? Okay.
I don't remember that.
I was going to say, I know, dude. You didn't even give me anything, dude.
I was trying to think, and I was like, what movie was that? It's too late. It's too far back.
This is a great team. Very back and forth.
This is the show. Welcome to the show, Taylor. Thank you for doing this.
Yeah, no, it's going to be fun.
Could you tell our 10 listeners who you are and kind of what you do?
Sure. So my name is Taylor, and I own Brujita Boutique, located at 1124 Morgan here in Corpus Christi.
Plug it.
Got a plug.
Hell yeah.
And I am a card reader, and so I run a metaphysical store, and we sell crystals. I make herbal-infused oils and candles and soaps, but really what I think I do is I help people, to find their peace in life. So I read cards, I do aura photos, I do tea leaf readings, all that cool witchy stuff.
I like the way you put that. Because it sounded very genuine and helpful as far as finding your peace in life. But I guess some people might have like such anxiety about maybe like what's going on.
It's a lot of stuff. Like sometimes, people will come in and they're like, I have a curse on me. And I'm like, well, you don't. But yeah, your life is definitely not where you want it to be. So like, let's work on that. And sometimes it's like, yeah, you do. Like, let's take care of that. Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's almost like the curse is them being too overwhelmed.
Well, the curse is sometimes their own bad habits.
Wow. That's an interesting way to look at it, because it could be, when you look at it from that point of view, it's like, yeah, it's not some weird, crazy mumbo jumbo. It's
sometimes.
Like, oh, really?
Yeah. Sometimes it's real crazy. I'm like, this is weird.
Can you say anything without, or is there a confidentiality? I understand that too.
I don't ever put names or nothing. I try not to do, but like super general. My clients are super nice about like letting me use their stories for promo.
Right.
But yeah, I've seen some stuff for sure. I'm trying to think of a really good one. Oh, so I have a friend. He's been my friend for a long time. But he used to date all these girls that were like really witchy. And, so he was like, man, like there's some crazy stuff going on. Am I allowed to cuss?
Yeah.
Okay,
go
cool.
ahead. Yeah.
There's some crazy shit going on, dude. Like he said he found a dead bird underneath the hood of his car. And like it was so, I was like, how the hell does that even happen? Like that's crazy, right? Because he's been at work all day. He comes back, his car's like, being weird, and he opens it and there's like a fucking dead bird. So, he's like, hey, can you pull some cards for me and like see what's going on? And I'm like, yeah, sure, dude. So I'm pulling it and I'm like, hey, yo, like you got some crazy shit going on. And he's like, yeah, I know. He's like, all this stuff is going on, like blah, 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 all this crazy stuff. So I was like, okay, we'll come in, we'll do a cleansing. And so we do the cleansing, right? And I do a fire limpia, which is like where you put the fire around them. We're doing that. And I had him step through it. Once he steps through it, I don't know how to explain it. I just was like looking at the middle, and you don't see anything, right? But I'm like, there's something there, and it was weird. And I was like, and then I just said, look, and we both saw it, and the flame literally turned into a swirl, like up and out the door.
What?
It was so, and then it collapsed once it went to the door. It collapsed, like the fire just went out, and the heat that came from that was so intense that we both took a step back. We were both like, oh shit, that was crazy. And we were both looking at each other. I was like, hey, you saw that though? Like, that wasn't just me. Like, that wasn't just making that shit up. That was crazy.
That's fucking crazy.
Yeah. And now, of course, he's a really good client of mine. Anytime he's in some shit, he's like, hey, dude,
His name wasn't Luis, was it?
No.
You remember?
Yeah.
We one of our buddies that came on, he said that he had a whole experience about like he was with a girl. I think his grandma got like a premonition or a feeling saying like, hey, these are bad people. They're going to end up doing this and they're into this kind of stuff and they're going to do this to you. So you should not be with her anymore. And he said, you know, he loved his grandma. He didn't disrespect her, but he was like, oh, okay, but he didn't do nothing.
Yeah.
He said eventually, I think it used to be that it was a different girl it ended up being, but everything that she had said was the same, but for like a different girl. But he walked in on some crazy stuff. They were like doing, they had like a lot of candles lit about it, but he was like, it's like the legit stuff. It's not like they were doing the stuff that it's known, like they're at least trying to do some bad juju on you. And he said he had a crazy experience with his son. And like things happening to like his son, and he was like, I know what this is, but we got to just like, we're going to pray. And then also we're going to try to ignore it because you don't want to feed into it.
Yeah.
But he was very like, no, dude, it was fucked up that these people were doing this real bad juju on me. So in your opinion, like this kind of stuff, do you think it's more like a learned skill that anybody can do? Not like a skill, but you know what I mean? Like, can anyone get into something to where... Like that guy was mixed up with people that obviously did something. Yeah. So is that like a thing that like how did you just start like reading about it one day or?
Yeah, well, I kind of always been into the. I say I've always been like a weird hippie child. Like
you can pull it down if you want. Cool. If it's too high, I'm sorry.
Yeah, you're fine. I've always been a weird hippie child. Like talk to trees, like with the earth. Like it's just really funny. Now my parents are like, yeah, like you've literally always been this way. But I also used to see spirits when I was little, and it was horrifying. You know, because I didn't really know what was going on. My parents were like, oh, you're just making it up. But I'm like, I don't know. That shadow's pretty fucking solid. It's got a face. So I kind of got into this more out of like necessity, especially once I hit puberty. And I find that this is really common where the things that happened to you as a child kind of happen, but more intense. Yeah. I don't know if it's like puberty. I hear that it's like the pineal gland, which is where our third eye is located, becomes more active during that time. You know, I'm not really sure exactly, but it was bad. And so then I watched The Craft, which is like a 90s witch movie, which
classic,
is iconic. I play it
awesome.
every day at the shop, guys. It's just it's a vibe. It's a vibe.
My wife would love it.
Yeah. But that's when I realized, like, oh, this is like real shit. Because like my parents growing up were just like, oh, like, you know, that's not, you know, real, or we don't do that, or, you know, whatever. Yeah. And I was like, oh, this is some real shit. Cool. And so I started out looking at like all the witch shops and like reading books about Wicca. And just kind of evolved from there. And now I'm really more focused on like Mexican folk magic, which is just me trying to like connect with all the pieces that, how should I say? I feel like I have lost through assimilation, which is trying to like fit in with, you know, non-Mexican culture, which is where we live. Right. Yes. And so it's been a journey for sure. I've met some amazing people doing this. And they have been absolutely influential. They've taught me a lot, helped me a lot with my confidence. That's like a really big thing in this. Like you got to have confidence, because if you don't, it ain't nothing gonna fucking work. But as far as like, can anybody do this? Yeah. But I do think it's like sports. So some people, they train and they become really good at sports. And some people are just naturally good.
They're just naturally gifted.
Yes. Okay. You know what I mean? And not everybody's going to play in you know, the fucking nationals, whatever. Yeah. So, you know, but I mean, everybody can be on a team.
Oh, okay.
Fair enough.
That's
I get what you're saying.
Yeah. Someone is gonna have to be the water boy version of the witch, to where it's like you love the sport.
Go there. Sorry.
They're like, pass me my herbs. I'm like, yes, master. Yes, master. Can you imagine that? Just like loving the sport so much, and you're like, I fucking can't play. I'm just like
There are people,
the hunchback one,
who they just, you know, they get overwhelmed. They don't, you know, have the time or the capacity, you know, or they just don't really care to do the training,
like,
you
the
know?
work. Yeah,
you know, and
but
I mean,
they like it.
Fair,
like a hobbyist.
Yeah, for sure. But it's really, I wouldn't even call it's a lifestyle.
That makes sense.
It really is, like, because I mean, it's day in, day out. Everything you do is magic based whenever you do this, and I mean, just literally anything, like down to like fucking parking, dude. Like for real.
Really?
I have this mantra that I do. It's so cheesy, but it fucking works. And I'll just be in a parking lot like before I come in. I'm like, I always get good parking. And lo and behold, anytime I get near where I want to be, a car leaves every single time. So again, it's a lifestyle, and that's kind of what I'm trying to.
Interesting.
say
Wow.
there. It's so weird. Yeah.
I think I'm doing the negative version to myself.
I was gonna say I think I have
that's a
because I have
thing.
to park in valet all the time.
I think I'm doing
At work,
nega
and I'm
magic.
like,
Yeah.
I don't pay them, but I mean
I get in the
park
parking.
there.
I get in the parking lot, and I'm all like, I'm gonna have to fucking park in the back. I know it. And lo and behold,
I just start
I have to
speaking-
park all the way in the fucking back.
I just start speaking Spanish whenever they come up to me, and then they just leave me alone because none of them speak Spanish.
They went to go get ice. They're like, I'll teach you.
Technically, they can have my car towed if they wanted.
Let's not get into that.
Yeah, let's
Yeah.
Don't put it out there. Don't even
That's
put it
a
out
yeah.
there.
I'm already feeling negative as it is. All right.
So, do you think some of the people that come in who are having troubles are kind of maybe unknowingly summoning bad shit on them because of it's almost kind of like a mindset. That's part of it, right?
Sometimes. It's definitely
As
a
far
big
as, like,
part of
yeah.
it.
Okay.
For sure. But for a lot of other reasons, in the occult, there's like a basic principle of like attracts like, right? So if you
Okay,
are
that makes
constantly putting out like, oh, I really don't want this bad thing to happen, well, guess what? You're manifesting it.
Yeah.
It also depends on what your gifts are. So everybody has different ways of manifesting. Some people manifest from their emotions. Some people manifest from their speech. Some with their thoughts, which I think is the best and the worst, because those people always have mental health issues. And it's because whatever your gift is where you have your biggest challenge, right, to access. So like people who manifest from their heart are always trying to suppress their emotions because they feel like it's too much.
Oh,
You know
wow.
what I mean? People who, again, when like I said, with the mind, with the speech, they're always speaking negative. They always you'll hear it. It's so interesting. And I'm like, girl, just change your language. Like, you know, it sounds almost a little silly. At least I think, you know, from the outside looking in, like it can't be that easy, and it's not easy because you're literally changing a huge part of yourself, your personality.
Yeah.
But when you do, to see and I feel like this too is having seen it done so many times. Now I'm a numbers person, so I'm like, after so many times, like statistically, there's got to be something to it, you know. So
It's weird. I was started to read or listen to a book, an audiobook that's about like the occult throughout time, of how it's where some of it originates, how it evolves, what their beliefs and what they're doing and stuff like that. And all of it comes down to like a mindset. Like they all have to go through rigorous trials to even like, hey, I'll pass you this knowledge so you can kind of bypass learning it yourself, but you have to be ready for it. And that's crazy how maybe some people are tapping into it unconsciously and they can't handle it because they don't know how to even control.
they don't even know what's going on.
Yeah. In like their own lives. And it's like, how am I supposed to fucking handle the meanings of life, the secret teachings of fucking life?
It's it's an interesting thing to see, you know. Sometimes it's not even their stuff that they're dealing with. It's like stuff that's been passed down through their DNA, you know, like, so I went to school for biotechnology and studied DNA engineering. And so in that time, I learned so much about how much our DNA is not only affected by us, but by the conditions in which our ancestors lived, and how we are kind of essentially left to process that. And that's why I believe, my humble opinion, our generation has so much anxiety and depression, because we're finally dealing with it. We are the generation to deal with it.
Wow. But why do you think this generation
Because we can. We have the tools to do it now.
Oh,
Therapy.
I get what you're saying. Oh, that makes sense.
We were like therapy culture before. I don't know about you, but my parents and grandparents were like anti-therapy. We don't believe in that shit.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Right?
You were
And now-
cuckoo.
Yeah,
Cuckoo.
you know what I
just
mean?
put that
So what
stuff
did you
down.
do? You just drank yourself to death, you know?
That's so true.
And now we're in the point to where we're like, we have the tools and the knowledge to be like, wow, this is just like PTSD, you know?
That does make sense. It's like I had uncles that only cried when they were drunk.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
for sure.
It's the only time they could, like the wall fell down. They were too fucked up to mentally suppress that shit. And they're just like, oh, but all of a sudden they're like, they know how bad they treat their mom, or they know how much like they failed their kids. Or something.
And so they mask that all in anger.
That's
you
crazy.
know, and that's just fear of not being enough.
Wow, that's an
So
interesting perspective.
It's that's just my, you know, I don't know if this is like true or whatever, but I just think that now we're just aware of it and we're able to deal with it, and we're dealing with generations of stuff, and that shielding the next generation to not have to deal with so much.
That's true. We're more
Yeah.
open-minded with our children. Like, hey, you can cry. Hey.
And now our children are so vocal, and they're speaking all the things that our ancestors didn't or we couldn't.
That makes sense, because you would
Interesting.
you would describe like the last generation as like tough. They were tough, but it was really that they were just being like
Abused.
Yeah, and that they were trying to,
Essentially.
like, a tough mentality to them was, oh, anything that bothers you, you act like it's not a problem, and you just act tough.
Yeah.
But now they're like, oh, this generation's weak, but they're more in tune with who they are. And like, you know what I mean? Like everyone back then looked the same and acted the same. And there's still that a little bit, but more people are okay with being who they are now than ever. And society itself is going, yeah, it's okay for you to be, there's more people like that than not.
And I think that came from our previous generation, like our parents' generation. I don't know about you, but my parents were like, they weren't open to me doing everything that I wanted, but at the same time, they were like, just be yourself, right? Like maybe don't like wear weird shit, but also like it's okay, you know. I feel like it's okay if you don't do X, Y, and Z. Like you should want to, but it's okay if you don't. Like don't kill yourself.
Yeah.
You know, and so passing that on forward. So I just feel like we're just in a space of generational healing, and it's just something that comes from our DNA. I don't even know how I got on this tangent.
No.
Yeah, I know.
No,
we do this. We do this all the time.
We should have called the show Tangents, but no, that made sense. All of that made sense. Even going, we often do that because we're walking the idea down to such like a niche part of like, hey, you could boil it down to this.
Exactly.
But no, all of that makes sense. It's an interesting thing to think about, to where a lot of it is part of like, it's psychology, it is biology, it's it's not just like, oh yeah, it's a spell or this and that. It's like, no, it's a lot of things. And if you can like put all these wavelengths on the same like on the same signal, like you can actually focus. It's like a scrambled signal. It's like you can dial it all in.
Literally, that's what I do. I take all these scrambled signals and put them into words when I read for people, and it's honestly really stressful sometimes because I get feelings. I feel something. I get a memory that's not theirs, it's mine, but it's equated to a specific feeling. Okay, I gotta get that. Put that into words. Like let's say, grandma's coming through, right? And she wants to let you know that, she really loves spending this time with you, right? So what do? I get a picture of me and my grandma doing something, right? I have that feeling of me and my grandma doing something. Okay, now how do I translate that? Then I get another image of something, and then I get a random word, and it's just like all these different things to put it together. Sometimes I get lucky and it just like hits my brain, like just in a complete thought. And
like
then I'm
clear.
Like, and I'm like, oh, okay, blah, 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 But sometimes I'm like, wait, what is the right word? How do I describe this right? And if I don't say it right, my body physically hurts. So that's how I know if I said the whole message or not. I'm like, okay, I feel good. We're good.
Wow, that's crazy. Yeah.
It's stressful.
What's your most common reaction? Like, are people more angry? Are they more sad, happy? Like, because I feel like it's all over the place.
It is. A lot of people usually feel, so they say, they feel relieved whenever they leave, which is good. That's ideal, right?
Right.
Sometimes they're just like, I've had a few people leave scared, and they're always the people that are like, oh, I don't know, I'm just going to do this just to fuck around, and then we get deep, and they're like, fuck,
that was too real.
I need to go.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Kind of, I get what you're saying. It got a little bit too real for them. How many times have people come in that you can't help even though you want to, and they...
I can't help people who won't help themselves. I'm not a babysitter. I'm not going to hold your hand, and I'm very clear about that. Like, I've had people try to call me at 3 a.m. D&D after 8. Don't call me. Don't message me. Leave a voicemail. I'll talk to you whenever I talk to you. Right. If you want to see me, these are my hours. Like, I have to have good boundaries because, and I understand, like, a lot of the people that come to see me, they're desperate. They're at their, what do you turn to a psychic first? I don't think so.
Fair enough.
After a while, I bet like some of them do.
No,
just
for
because
sure.
They're like, oh no, it actually is a real thing.
No, for sure. And but at the same time, I'm really good with my clients too about being like, you can't come back here every week because I'm going to tell you the same shit, and then I'm just going to be taking your money, and you're going to be mad. You're not going to like it, because it takes about 3 to 4 months for me to see any significant change. like
Right.
breaking a habit. You know, it
Yeah,
takes
yeah.
like, what is it, 90 something days,
Yeah,
or
it's
I don't know what. So 3 to 4 months, because your energy changes by that point.
Yeah.
So if you want to get a reading, unless something significant has happened, like, I don't know, you lost your job
Yeah,
or
yeah.
somebody passed away, like anything major, sure, you can come in earlier. But if it's not, don't waste your time, because you're just going to be mad at me.
Wow. That's.
Interesting.
When did you start your because so you were doing it before, so you started reading about this when you were young.
Let's see. I guess I started my witch journey at 14, and I went through a lot of different phases, I call them. Went through a Jesus freak phase, went through a very heavy Buddhist phase, went through a quantum mechanics phase.
Interesting.
Lots of different avenues. But one day, and I picked it up and I put it down, just with life, going to school, having kids, like, you just kind of, you put stuff away.
Right.
But I don't know how to explain it. One day I feel like I just woke up, like I had been sleeping for a long time, and I just woke up and I just remembered a lot of stuff. I remember the things that I had learned, but I also knew stuff. Like, I don't know how to explain it. It was a very weird feeling. And then a friend of mine just happened to ask me a question, and I answered it, and I was like, I don't even know if that's right, but it sounds right. And so I don't know how to explain it, but it worked. And I didn't even want to read cards, honestly. I really didn't. My ex gave me a tarot deck as a joke. Like, I don't understand why you're afraid of these cards, because I've always had what I call a very healthy respect for divination. It's such a intense thing to do, and it requires a lot of pre-work that not a lot of people do, and so they go crazy. So yeah, but turns out I was good at it.
That's interesting you say that, because I do feel like that's a real strong feeling in like old school Mexican religious culture that that's just fake. It's
very real.
Don't mess with that stuff.
Yeah.
It's not like,
Yeah, I was gonna say.
and then you don't have to believe in that. It's really like, don't go and fuck around with that shit unless you know what you're like. That's not necessarily bad stuff, but like, that's a different thing.
It is, and it's intense, and I do excuse me, I do understand why people say that, because if you just walk in there and you just start reading, imagine you're just like putting too much electricity through something that doesn't have enough capacity.
Yeah, that's a good way
And
to
it's
say it.
just gonna explode. And that's what happens to your mind.
Wow. How do you feel about Ouija boards?
That's not for me, only because I feel like I don't have the necessary tools to do that. I do know people who do that, like, professionally, and they're very good at it. It's just like not for me. I do think that people fuck with stuff with not like, I understand, and people are like, it's just a board, and I'm like, it's not just a board. There's a reason why people who don't even believe in this shit have experiences.
Yeah, that's true.
exactly.
That's a good point. I've heard I don't know how many.
Yeah.
And whether it's like everybody thinks it's real and there's one person fucking with it, or everyone that like, no, dude, something weird happened that night. And it's always like someone saying, there was someone saying, yeah, don't fuck with that shit. We all fucked with it. And they're like, some weird stuff happened.
Yeah.
And we don't fuck with it no more.
And it's just not for me.
Because I can't say, like, I've never had an experience with it, but it's enough of a legitimate feeling that I go, I'm not going to mess with that.
Stories told and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
How
Yeah.
should
I would never even do it as a joke. I'm like, I'm not going to. My wife would she might divorce me, bringing a Ouija board into her house. She said that before. She's like, don't fucking bring that shit in my house.
Yeah,
Like, no,
it's just
no, ma'am.
it's intense, and if you don't, everything is a portal. Okay, even cards. But I feel like cards is like looking through a window from outside the house, and the Ouija board is like opening the front door. And
Wow.
so it's just like, do you have the capacity to step away from that if you need to?
Wow.
To know who's at the door when they're knocking.
Right.
What in your studies or your experience, what is that stuff on the other side coming through?
Sometimes it is good. Sometimes it's bored. Especially if you're not specific. Even with cards, I have to say very specific things before I open up. So I always say a prayer before. For specific things. Otherwise, if you're just like, who's out there? Like,
Oh, yeah.
And then it's like, me, bitch.
That makes
Interesting.
sense. Wow. So it's like opening the front door and
That's
being
kinda
like,
scary.
no, I'm expecting someone and I'm going to call them. And then like being able to like, anybody who wants to come into my house and do whatever you want. And they're like, okay. The crazy ones are going to come running.
Yeah, usually.
Wow. One of my favorite movies, because it seems so like classic to how I would think the stuff that my family would tell me about is, did you ever see that Paranormal Activity? Where it's about like the Mexican witches, pretty much, and how same thing, they start messing with stuff. It's like that's always been my favorite, one of my favorite movies and favorite depictions. Is it anything like that, or is that like is everything kind of like everything is kind of like a dramatization of like what it is? It's almost like
half truths for sure. Some of it's fucking crazy though. I'm not gonna lie. Like there's some shit out there where I'm like, not for me. I know that what I'm doing now is what I'm supposed to be doing, and that's why it works. And I feel like with anything, if you overstep, you have the potential to have it snap back because it's outside of your spectrum of control.
Would you say you almost have like a spiritual like energy barrier as far as you know how to, even if that stuff is around you, you can like shield yourself as far as like, nah, you have to like think this way, you have to feel this way, and it's kind of like a thing that keeps them.
Absolutely.
But like normal people wouldn't know that.
No. It's very interesting, especially whenever I go out of the shop to do work, like I do pop-ups and stuff. Sorry. I have the weirdest experiences. Like I met this lady and her energy was like very invasive. And so sometimes everybody has an aura, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some people move it in different ways unconsciously, and you can feel it if you like,
You're in tune with it.
and it's like, have you seen, was it Deadpool Wolverine?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. You know how, what's her name? The bald chick
Yeah.
puts her hands in everybody's face.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes it feels like that, but they're in your aura, not in your body, but they're like,
Oh, I know.
they're
what
like-
you
Oh, I
mean.
get what you're saying.
they're like, ew, what's in here? What's going on?
Yeah,
And it's
yeah.
very uncomfortable.
Right.
And so I've met people who have that kind of energy, and it's like I have to mentally, like consciously, like block it out.
Push it out. Yeah.
Push it
wow.
out. Yeah. And sometimes it's so weird because you can feel it. Like they're like, no. And I'm like, they're like,
so
they're
it's
like
a force.
Yeah. They're like pushing in, and I'm like, no, let's go away. Okay. Let's go in. No, let's not do that. And sometimes I have to have people, I'm like, okay, I need you to like close your eyes and like do this or whatever, because I'm like, you're stressing me out. I can't even read you because I'm too busy trying to keep you from fucking poking around on me. It's weird. It's annoying. And then when I tell them stuff, they're like, oh yeah, I totally do that. I'm like, yeah, I know. I can fucking feel it. Like, it's interesting, and it just requires a lot of discipline as far as like spiritual hygiene, taking care of myself, my body, my mental health. That's also why I only work 3 days a week. Because if I did this shit every day, I would be sick.
Yeah. That makes sense. Because it's kind of like just being entrenched in it all the time.
Yeah.
So
You go
like
crazy.
it's almost like bringing your
Draining.
home work. It's like working at the movie theater and you come home smelling like popcorn.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Have you ever had any like residual shit from like other people bringing their like you have to help them? You're like, fuck, I got this shit all over me now.
Yeah, no, for sure. And it comes with the territory, but it's, taking time. I mean, I don't want to say like it's stuck on the external. So we have different layers of our aura. Our external one is like our skin, right?
Yeah.
And then we have our internal layers of skin, right? So if it's on the external skin, you can just wash it. It's fine. You just don't want it to go internal because then it becomes a problem.
Wow, yeah, like an
now it's
infection or
attached-
some
it-
shit.
Yeah, yeah.
It is. Yes, it can become sometimes that's how I describe brujeria, as like an infection,
Yeah.
or a weed. You plant the seed, and then it just kind of waters it, or you water it.
That makes
Yeah.
sense.
It's really interesting. That's the best kind.
So it's a lot of it comes down to like spiritual maintenance.
Absolutely, spiritual hygiene.
That's a good way. Yeah. It's just like keeping up with like, hey, just like you would, brush your hair and take a shower every day, you have to do this shit too. Because then it kind of
Absolutely.
clumps on, and then you're just carrying that shit around with you, and then it starts affecting your daily life.
Absolutely, and that's what they say too. Like they're always like, oh, curanderos have like the worst luck, and I'm like, they shouldn't, if they're doing it the way that they should be.
Right.
That doesn't mean shit's not going to happen, because life happens. But you shouldn't have to absorb all of that because you will die.
Is there like a network of witches, like even like within the city limits of like, oh, there's community here, there's a larger one regionally?
Because I was just about to ask, do you ever like go see anybody yourself that you trust?
yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say like how chiropractors go see other chiropractors. Like
That would
Yeah.
make
you
sense.
ever, yeah, you know what I mean. Like
Can't
I would imagine you can't do everything.
Absolutely
on
not.
Can't deliver your
yourself
own
or
mail.
to
Yeah,
yourself.
and I equate it to like trying to smell yourself.
That's
You know,
a good point.
it's really hard unless it's like really good or really bad. Like
Yeah,
you
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
don't know. And so again, and everybody also has like nuance. Like there are certain things that I can perceive as one half of a picture that somebody else can't.
Right.
And so sometimes there's like pieces that I can feel it, I'm missing, I can't see it, and so I ask someone else, and they'll fill in the gaps for me, and I'm like, oh, thanks, girl. And so we'll do that. Like I have, witch friends that will message me, be like, hey, can we trade this or do that? And I'm like, hell yeah, bitch, let's go. Like,
Yeah, it's kind of like fucking like cosmetologists kind of hooking each other up. It's like, we're both good. How about we fucking
yeah, or like doing collabs. Like I also had a podcast for a little bit where I would interview people
Nice.
about magic and stuff.
Wow. So what happened?
It's just a lot of work.
I feel you, dude.
It's just
Yeah,
me,
definitely.
I make all the shit in the shop, I take care of all the inventory, paperwork. I'm there. I'm doing all the services. Like, it's just too much.
Yeah,
You would need a
Uh,
producer, like someone who would like, you could just come in and be like, okay, you do all the rest of the work.
Yeah, and, just also like finding people who are interested in doing it because, not everybody wants to do every podcast.
That's a
Yeah.
good point.
Yeah.
We're surprised
that's-
you.
yeah.
Yeah. We're surprised
No,
you did.
I do everybody's podcast just because I know what it's like to try to find guests and you're like, fuck.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
and it's good
Which
fun.
is why we've only had our friends on.
It's fair. Yeah.
And what's
Yeah.
crazy, because you could totally tell you've done podcasts before, and that's like a dumb thing to say, but someone who's never done it, who like, if you do it for the first time, you'll realize, oh, this is kind of weird and clunky and stuff like that. So like our friends are, God bless them, but even us, we didn't know how to. Oh, we're supposed to talk here and talk, but you totally have a very good instinct as far as like, oh no, I have to talk into the mic. I have to.
I'm a yapper. For sure.
Fair
Well, you
enough.
kind of have to be, right?
Just kidding. What?
That-
But you kind of have to be.
Yeah.
Like, you have
Yeah.
to.
I was
Oh,
gonna
don't even get me
say.
started on that.
You have to be able to
The amount of
communicate to everybody.
information you have to give out.
Literally. I have severe social anxiety. Like, it's really bad. Unless it's about like work, I'm good with that. Like, I could talk about work. But when it comes to like just being out with people, I'm like,
Right.
I'm like, hey guys. what's up?"
Really?
It's very uncomfy. I don't like to go out a lot. So, but doing this, I had to get over that. Like, I have a picture of me at my first pop up, and I'm like smiling, but I'm like, like so obviously uncomfortable, and I was so scared. It was, and then through the years, just dealing with people who come up and say the most fucked up shit.
Really?
Like, dude, I had this man come up to me one time at the Male Fest, and he was just asking me what I had, and I was just telling him, and he's like, "Have you ever read the Bible?" And I said, "Have you?" And he told me some scripture, and I was like, what about not casting a stone when there's a stick in your eye or something? I don't know what I said, a splinter in your eye. And he was so mad. He's like, well, I don't know what the hell he said, but I was just like, whatever, dude, go away. Like, I have people come in that are like just super rude. They're like, this shit's fake. And I'm like, then leave. Why are you here? Like,
Yeah, that's a good point.
You
Yeah,
know,
why'd
like-
you even fucking what's
yeah,
wrong with you,
well,
dude?
Well, people love miserable people like to spread misery. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just like, I'm sorry for you. I'm sorry you hate your life.
That's crazy. Do you do cleanses? What like goes into something like that? Like, what do you have to do as far as the process, or like?
So for me, I do require a consultation, which is just me pulling some cards because I got to figure out what kind of cleanse you need.
You have to like know what to get rid of. That makes sense.
Yeah. Well, do you need to be cleansed by fire? Do you need to be cleansed by water? Do you need to be cleansed by air? What do you need? Right. Then what is even out of balance, right? Let's say you need to be cleansed by fire, but now you don't have any water. So how do I replace that into your spirit to bring you back into balance? Sometimes it's really off-putting too. Sometimes I need to, a lot of times whenever you're doing cleansing, it's surprising. You're just removing something to replace it with the proper thing to create the balance again. But sometimes you just need to remove something completely, right? Like a parasite, or spiritual parasite. And that can be really off-putting for some people, because it's like having an imaginary backpack or an invisible backpack on your back, and then you take it off and you don't see it, but something's weird and you're off balance.
Wow.
Right.
Okay.
And so it's very, how should I say, destabilizing for some people. And so I have to like mentally prepare them for that too. I'm like,
Yeah, yeah.
hey, this is going to happen. Like, this is normal. Don't freak out. Just keep going. It's going to, sometimes they need to detox stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like, your mind's going to be thinking all these crazy thoughts. Just let them. They need to come out, just a lot of shit. And it's interesting for sure. But then I also need to cleanse before. I need to cleanse after. I need to mentally prepare because I have to be in the right mind space. If I'm not, then I'm like, I don't know how to explain it. I get overwhelmed by the energy. Mm-hmm. So then I end up like, sometimes I'll be shaking.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. I don't know why that is, but it just happens sometimes. And it's just intense. So, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's just people need to fucking cry. And I create the space for that. For them to just like literally, like I've had people on the floor sobbing, but
and that's like their own cleanse.
Yeah. I mean, but sometimes it takes someone to facilitate it for you to get you to that point to where you can even bring that wall down enough to do that.
Yeah.
I also do Reiki, which is energetic healing, which really is mostly, it looks like me doing nothing, but by the end of it, everybody's crying,
yeah.
And it's really interesting. Everybody's so different. Every situation is different. There's no real like cut and dry. For me, at least. I know that some people wouldn't agree with that, but for me, it's not that way.
Have you ever had a beef with another witch?
I've had people have beef with me.
Is it just like typical shit of insecurity or?
Absolutely. I like to stay to myself, honestly. Like I have a few people that, I consider friends in town that I really like them. I think they're great. I think I send them referrals. Then I have some people that are like really weird with me and think that I'm a hater. And I'm like, that's cool if you feel that way. Like, I don't care. I'm just going to be over here. And it's been a thing that I've heard from multiple people. And I'm just like, whatever. Like that's, in spiritual world, we talk a lot about the ego.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever you do something from your ego, it's like, oh, like, a negative thing. And so it's like, go over there with your ego. Like, if you think that we're in competition, that's really weird because we don't even do the same shit. Like, nobody anywhere is the same.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has their own thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Again, it's like sports.
And that's weird for them to do that because you're different. But then if you were the same thing, they still wouldn't like it because you're like, oh, you're trying to do what I do. Yeah. So it's like, I don't even know what that comes from, but I think that's a very like human.
For sure. And don't get me wrong. Like, nobody's I'm not going to sit here and say like, I'm perfect. Like there's definitely been times where I'm like, that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. I don't like that. But I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, fuck that bitch. Like, don't talk to her. She's fake. And I've had a lot of people come in and try to get me to talk shit about other practitioners in town. Yeah. And I'm like, I don't even know them like that. Like, I'm sorry you had that experience. I hope you don't have that experience with me. But like, what am I supposed to say?
Yeah.
It's really weird.
Fair enough. That's crazy.
It's so weird.
We're getting to the end of our show. I just wanted to say again, thank you for coming on, Taylor.
Yes, definitely.
I thought that was pretty fucking cool about how you explained everything because it sounds like how long have you been doing everything?
So I started this journey when I was 14. I'm 31 now, but I've been in official business since 2019. So it's been 5 years professionally.
Okay. Nice.
3 years as a brick and mortar. It's going to be 4 pretty soon. So that's crazy. But yeah, hopefully many more years.
And could you do like, if someone hits you up online, could they do like a online session? Is there anything that exists like that?
So
because there's some things you wouldn't be able to do, right? But there's some things you probably could do.
The only things that I do online are card readings, and I have clients all over the country, internationally. It's really cool.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. Like, they think the furthest package I ever shipped was in Germany, and I was like, holy fuck, this is awesome.
That is fucking cool.
Yeah, it was super cool. But yeah, no, so that's the only thing I do right now is I do card readings. Of course, like I said, I do have products that I sell. I ship those in the U.S. and internationally. You can hit me up at brujitaboutique.com. Of course, I'm on all the socials and all that. So.
Yes, and it's La Brujita on all
Facebook,
the social. Mm-hmm.
And then on Instagram, it's the.brujita. But if you go on my website, everything's listed. So
okay.
That's awesome. That's awesome. We appreciate you coming on. To end the episode, I wanted to start doing this new segment with Falon, and we're just going to do it with our guests. Just that so people can get to know us more. We're gonna do like a questionnaire of like getting to know someone at the end of every episode. So that way, slowly everyone can say like, "Oh, I know Falon. He doesn't like cheese."
I like cheese.
It was just an example, Falon.
Okay.
So we'll do just like a random one. These are pretty interesting. It says, "What do you hope to grow out of?" That's a good one. Falon, you want to start?
What do I hope to grow out of?
Yeah. Probably not your pants.
I'm already doing that.
At this age.
Very depressing. What do I want to grow out of? I don't know. That's a good question.
Yes, Falon. That's why I asked it.
Let's circle back. I want to think about that first.
Are you serious? Okay.
Yeah.
What I hope most to grow out of is to stop thinking that like every time something like shitty's happening, it's happening to me specifically for some reason. I have like a real short temperament when it comes to certain things, and if you stop and think about it, it's really not that big of a deal. And I'm getting better at letting it go, but it'd be nice to where like there's some people that you know that like when something bad happens, it's almost like it didn't even faze them. It's like, man, that sucks. And I'm like, yeah. Oh well, it's happening. Miss Taylor,
That's a good one.
what do you hope to grow out of?
I really hope to grow out of procrastination.
That's a good one.
Because I'm fairly, I mean, I have to be organized, but it's just really hard for me sometimes to start things, and because then I'm thinking about every single step ahead of me when I should just be looking at the one thing that's in front of me.
That's a good point.
So I'm getting better, but still, like, I still find myself sitting and trying to start something for like a couple hours. So
That's a good one. That kind of has like partial to do with mine. I guess I want to break out of routines. I feel like my entire life is in a routine.
That's true. Some routines are good.
Yeah.
Like wiping your ass. That's a good routine.
you should schedule your out of routine time. I mean, you know.
Interesting.
I tell my clients to do that a lot. Like set a time frame for like 2 or 3 hours where you're just like, I'm just gonna fuck around. I don't know what's gonna happen here, but something.
That was a good joke, and it's also probably good advice.
Dude, I was like, I thought about it for a second. I was like, okay, that actually sounds like that's a pretty good idea. Because
2 on Tuesdays.
Well, 2 on Tuesday. My Tuesdays are filled already.
2 Tuesdays. Oh, damn it.
Yeah, I got doubles on Tuesdays. It's terrible. That's why I say I feel like my life is in a routine.
Mm-hmm.
You already knew what you were doing all day Tuesday.
Yeah, that's what I'm telling you. Like I literally like, I don't lose track of days because it's the same thing every week.
Oh man, sounds
it's
awful.
terrible, dude. Yeah. Why did you ask this question?
It's a questionnaire.
I'm upset about it.
But that's good. It's good so people can relate to you more and not think that you're just a jerk, a bully to Randy. And with that, we're going to end the show. Any closing thoughts, Taylor? Anything. You can say whatever you want.
Shit. No pressure. I don't know.
You don't have to say anything.
Oh, okay, cool.
Closing thoughts?
Closing thoughts.
Okay, well, that's the episode. Thank you, everybody, for joining. And subscribe, like, share, buy a T-shirt, and tell your mom.
We'll send you bathwater.
And we'll send you our bathwater.
Oh, baby.